Hey guys, Jsnow, another deck tech for you guys. So in this video, it's just a quick deck profile, nothing too in-depth, but let's go into the new cards for Chromatic Black. So I've built a million Chromatic Black decks recently, so new ZENDIKAR expansion comes with a ton of awesome upgrades. First one is Spare Supplies, which basically goes for free if you have the War of the Spark Ugin now, because it reduces the cost by 2, and it enters the battlefield tapped and draws a card, then you can sacrifice it and draw a card. Then you have Forsaken Monument. This is the best thing we can get since we don't actually have Eldrazi's, but every time you tap a colorless permanent, you add another additional colorless mana, so effectively doubles all your artifact mana, and you gain life when casting colorless spells, and since a lot of these spells are cheap like Spare Supplies and Mind Stone, you'll be gaining a bunch of life. And then the final card is Lithoform Engine, if I said that correctly. This card is busted. Copy permanents, copy planeswalkers, copy abilities. It copies everything in the game, so you can abuse that as much as you want. So let's go right into the gameplay. Alright, so here's the first match. I have it sped up a little bit because, this was a slightly long one. But basically the goal of the deck, if you don't know what Chromatic Lantern does, is to ramp up with artifacts and use the mono black engine to either disrupt your opponent or to use Cabal Stronghold to get a ton of mana. I've actually almost never used Cabal Stronghold, so I probably gotta rework the deck a tiny bit. But otherwise, as you can see here, the guy's playing a pseudo-ramp deck, but near the end of the game, I have just so much mana, it's not even funny. And then using Karn, you can go into your wish board and get fun things like Chaos Wand. Chaos Wand is so much fun. As you can see right here, you use Chaos Wand and you just use your opponent's deck against them. Those wolves that buff Karuks, does it really matter? Not when you run removal in your opponent's deck. I also somehow lost the very end of this footage, but basically I used the exile spell he had in his own deck and destroyed all his wolves and he rage quitted. And then right here we have Erebos' Intervention, which is a great defensive spell. And if you have the Lithomancer, artifact on the field, you can copy even X spells. So think about like Torment of Hellfire or anything crazy with X cost in it. There's so many possibilities. So right here I'm about to die with like 2 life left, but since it copies X abilities, I pay like a ton of mana to gain like 9 life apiece, and then I gain 18 life, destroy 2 of his creatures. It gets extremely wacky. That artifact is just so busted. It requires a lot of setup, but in this deck you're almost always focused on getting things out like that. Here's a disgusting combo with the Meteor Golem, so we're able to copy Meteor Golem twice, because this thing copies permanents for 4 mana, so we get to copy Meteor Golem twice. You can do this with any creature. Of course, if you do it with a legendary, the legendary will die on impact, but if, let's say, you're using Oro, I mean, you wouldn't be using Oro on this deck, but you could, technically, since you have access to all your mana. You can do that twice. And then we used Karn to get Helmet Host. I throw fun things into the sideboard for the wish board for Karn, because I just want to have fun with it. So we attach Helmet Host to the Meteor Golem, and not only that, on the combat trigger, we can copy the copy of the copy to make Meteor Golems everywhere, to make 2 extra medium golems a turn. It's disgusting, man. It's absolutely disgusting. And then in this game, on control games, I have yet to lose any type of control matchup, but the deck is very weak against aggro. I was playing best of 1, so there's a lot of aggro, but then in control, oh man, the Wand of Doom, man. It's so funny just to counter your opponent's counter with a counter. And it's just like you watch their look on their face and then they stutter for a second because you can tell when they're highlighting all the cards and they're like, yeah, I got him. And then it's like, oh, you have to pay 3 mana? Not a problem in this deck at all. So let's go to the deck list. Alright, so here's not exactly final, but the final deck I've been using just to grind down some coins and stuff like that. So the cards are necessary, but you can change up the deck a lot since you're just accessing the wish board, but this is what I run. So 1 Thoughtseize, 3 Guardian Idols for a mana ramp. Even though it comes in tap, it's still useful. It can also become a creature. 4 Mind Stone, 4 Spare Supplies, 2 Bontu's Last Reckoning, which is almost a must because of all the aggro decks running around, and the fact that you can't untap your lands, but you can still use your artifacts, and since a lot of your stuff's colorless, you can still do things. And 2 Murderous Riders, destroy stuff. 1 Chromatic Lantern here. I'm probably going to add a second one. I just don't know if I'm going to do it yet or not. And then 1 Chromatic Lantern in the sideboard, so you can search it with Karn, just in case somebody removes it from your deck or something like that, or you don't draw it in time. 4 Mastermind's Acquisition, this allows you to search your library or your wish board. This is a must-have card. 3 Karns to search your wish board. I found 4 was a little too much, because once you run out of artifacts, there's not much else you can do with Karn. So go back to that. 1 Lithoform Engine, must-have. It's so funny. You can copy everything. It's just amazing. And you go, actually, I think if this is correct, you can Chaos Wand your opponent's card, cast it, and then Lithoform Engine to double the cast. I gotta eventually do that. 2 Solemns for ramp. You could probably drop these. They're okay. I just use it because it's basic ramp. Shadow's Verdict is a new card from Zendikar Rising, which exiles all creatures and planeswalkers that cost 3 or less. Since pretty much all of our decks except Murderous Rider is 4 or more as far as creatures and planeswalkers are concerned, this will probably not hit you and will hit your entire opponent's field. 2 Ugin Ineffables. The colorless cost 2. Makes your Guardian Idol, Mind Stone, Spare Supplies all free. But I mostly use it for the +1 as a stall tactic and draw tactic. Because it can block creatures, and when it dies, you get to put the card in your hand. So it's very, very good. 4 Erebos Intervention. You can gain life, or you can exile Erebos if you feel like it. 2 Cabal Stronghold. I've yet to actually get this off. I don't know why. But basically, once you get to around 5 basic swamps and you use its ability, you just gain extra mana per swamp. But I don't know, I haven't been able to do it yet, so I might just drop it to 1 just to add another swamp. And then we have 3 Castle Locthwain, since you're going to be gaining some life off a lot of these cards. Free draws. A bunch of swamps. 1 Blast Zone. I don't think I've ever really pumped this and used it. I've won 2 games where people were playing a ton of 1-drops and I would just sacrifice and blow up their field, so that's why I keep it in here. Otherwise, it's not a must-have card. 1 Cascading Cataracts. This one's a must-have because you can change any color mana into 5 mana of any colors, and it's indestructible. 2 Fabled Passages. This is in the deck a little bit. And in the sideboard, technically you can do whatever you want in the sideboard, but this is what I do. Gravedigger's Cage for any graveyard shenanigans. 1 Shadow Sphere if I need to regain that life. Confounding Conundrum is a new card that prevents mana ramping by your opponents, but I haven't really been able to use it, and by the time you ramp, they ramp, so this might go the way of the dodo. 1 Chaos Wand, because Chaos Wand is so fun. The Lantern, we said, Commit Memory. You can reshuffle your graveyard into your library just in case you somehow get milled. 1 Helm of the Host, because it's hilarious. 1 Hour Devastation as a board wipe. 1 Hour Revelation as this is like a super emergency board wipe. This will destroy all your artifacts. 1 Chandra, because it can't be counted. 1 Mirror March, just in case I steal opponents' cards and play with them, so there's probably some fun stuff with that. Actually, I gotta add Bolus. Oh my goodness, I didn't even think of that. So yeah, instead of Scholar of the Lost Trove, let's get rid of that. And Genesis Ultimatum, because the mana is kind of weird here. You can add in a Bolus and just throw that in there. Bolus the God Pharaoh, yeah. Plus, basically you use the +2 to exile the creatures, and then play them, and if you have Mirror March out, you get the copy of opponents. It's so funny. 1 Meteor Golem and 1 Rise of Dark Realms to put all creatures from graveyards under your control. So, absolute fun deck. Feel free to try it. I'm also going to add in a, Ashiok just in case if the graveyard's going too fast. But otherwise, awesome deck. I hope you guys enjoy it. Feel free to subscribe for more deck techs, and I'll see you guys next time.